All right, hello everybody and welcome. My name is Dr. Eric Verlin. I am a naturopathic doctor. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the laws of cure. So let's start by asking a question. How do people become better? Natural health practitioners have had several ideas about how the body improves, which many of old referred to as the laws of cure. Lindlar indicates that inflammation and fever are not primary but secondary manifestations of disease. No inflammatory disease can arise in the system unless there is present some handicap to health, which nature is endeavoring to overcome and get rid of. Nature has based the claim to be the fundamental law of cure. Give me fever and I can cure every disease. Thus Hippocrates, the father of medicine, formulated the fundamental law of cure over 2,000 years ago. This law is expressed in the following statement. Every acute disease is the result of a cleansing and healing effort of nature. This law, thoroughly understood and applied in the treatment of disease, will eventually do for medical science what the discovery of other natural laws has done for physics, astronomy, chemistry, and other exact sciences. It will, by demonstrating the unity of disease and treatment, transform the medical empiricism and confusion of the past and present into the exact science. Making a general application of the law, we deduce that all acute diseases from a simple cold to measles, scarlet fever, diphtheria, smallpox, pneumonia, etc., represent nature's effort to remove from the system some form of morbid matter, virus, or poison dangerous to health and life. In other words, acute disease cannot develop in a perfectly normal, healthy body, living under conditions favorable to human life. The question may be asked, if acute disease represents nature's healing efforts, why is it that people die as a result of them? The answer is the vitality may be too low, the injury or morbid encumbrance too great, or the treatment may be inadequate or harmful, so that nature loses the fight. Still, acute diseases represent an effort of nature to remove the cause of disease and thus to reestablish normal healthy conditions. When people get a bacterial infection, it is due to the fact that their body has created an environment for bacteria to grow. If you have the proper nutrition within your body, you eat healthy, you have all the proper nutrients, the chances for your body to have an environment for bacteria to grow decreases. It is a curious fact that this fundamental principle of nature cure and law of nature has been acknowledged and corroborated by medical science. The most advanced works on pathology admit the constructive and beneficial character of inflammation. However, when it comes to the treatment of acute diseases, physicians seem to forget entirely this basic principle of pathology and treat inflammation and fever as though they were, in themselves, inimical and destructive to health and life. From this inconsistency in theory and practice arises all of the errors of allopathic medical treatment. Failure to understand this fundamental law of cure accounts for the confusion of the part of exponents of the different schools of healing science, and for a greater part of human suffering. Nature cure philosophy never loses sight of the fundamental law of cure, while allopathy regards acute disease conditions as in themselves harmful and hostile to health and life, as something to be cured by drug, ice, or knife. The nature cure school regards these forcible house cleanings as beneficial and necessary, so long as human beings continue to disregard nature's laws. So pretty much, for example, when someone comes down with a cold, they get a fever, their immune system pretty much fights off whatever bacterial infection there is, and then you get the cough, you get the sneezing, the running nose. All of that is your body getting rid of all that dead bacteria, all the dead viruses and stuff that your body just got done killing off. So when you get a cold, don't really see it as a bad or negative thing, because that's your body fighting that off and getting rid of it. And that's what most people nowadays mistake. Oh, I have a cold, I need to do something to cure the cold. Well, you're not going to cure the cold, you're just going to suppress it, making things worse. While, through its simple natural methods of treatment, Nature Cure easily modifies the course of inflammatory and feverish process and keeps them within safe limits. It never checks nor suppresses these acute reactions by poisonous drugs, ice, serums, antiseptics, surgical operations, suggestions, or any other suppressive treatment. Like I kind of mentioned, when we suppress the symptoms of a cold, we're making things worse. We're not allowing our body to correctly get rid of all this stuff. We have a cough, we suppress it, our body's not getting rid of the bacteria. We have a stuffy runny nose, we suppress it, our body's not getting rid of the dead bacteria. Skin eruptions, boils, ulcers, catarrh, diarrhea, and all other forms of inflammatory febrile disease processes are indications that there is something hostile to life and health in the organism, which nature is trying to remove or overcome by these so-called acute diseases. What then is to be gained by suppressing them with poisonous drugs and surgical operations? Such practice does not allow nature to carry on her work of cleansing and repair to attain her ends. The morbid matter, which she is endeavoring to eliminate by acute reaction, is thrown back into the system. Worse than that, drug poisons are added to disease poisons. Is it any wonder that fatal complications arise, or that the acute process is changed to chronic disease? The statements made are a severe indictment of so-called regular medical science, but they point out the difference in the basic principles of old school of healing and those of nature cure philosophy. The fundamental law of cure explains why allopathic medical science is in error, not in a few things, but in most things. Their foundation, the orthodox conception of disease, being wrong, it follows that everything built thereon must be wrong also. No matter how learned a man may be, if he begins a problem in arithmetic with the proposition 2 times 2 equals 5, he will never arrive at the correct solution even if he continues to figure into all eternity. Neither can allopathy solve the problem of disease and cure so long as its fundamental conception of disease is based on error. The fundamental law of cure explains also why the great majority of allopathic prescriptions contain virulent poisons in some form or other, and why surgical operations are in high favor with the disciples of old school. The answer of allopathy to the question, why do you give poisons, usually is, our materia medica contains poisons because drug poison kills and eliminates disease poison. We, however, claim that drug poisons merely serve to paralyze vital force, whereby the deceptive results of allopathic treatment are obtained. We have learned that so-called acute diseases are nature's cleansing and healing efforts. All acute reactions represent increased activity of vital force, resulting in feverish and inflammatory conditions, accompanied by pain, redness, swelling, high temperature, rapid pulse, catarrhal discharges, skin eruptions, boils, ulcers, etc. Now, these are all symptoms that we get when, something is wrong within the body. A lot of these are indicators. Now, if, you eat healthy, you get the proper nutrients that you need. There's no synthetic chemicals sprayed on, your foods, genetically modified foods. Once you get rid of all of that, you get proper nutrition, proper nutrients, you're living a healthier life. A lot of this stuff goes away. Allopathy regards these violent activities of vital force as detrimental and harmful in themselves. Anything which will inhibit the action of vital force will, in allopathic parlance, cure acute diseases. Nothing more effectively paralyzes vital force and impairs the vital organs than poisonous drugs, ice, and the surgeon's knife. These, therefore, must be necessarily constitute the favorite means of cure of the old school of medicine. This school mistakes effect for cause. It fails to see that the local inflammation arising within the organism is not the disease, but merely marks the locality and the method through which nature is trying her best to discharge the morbid encumbrances. That the acute reaction is local, but that its cause or feeders are always constitutional and must be treated constitutionally. When under the influence of rational natural treatment, the poisonous irritants are eliminated from blood and tissues. The local symptoms take care of themselves. It does not matter whether they manifest as pimple or cancer, as a simple cold, or as consumption. So we're moving on now to the law of dual effect. Everywhere in nature rules the great law of action and reaction. All life sways back and forth between giving and receiving, between action and reaction. The very breath of life mysteriously comes and goes in rhythmical flow. So also heaves and falls in ebb and tide, the bosom of Mother Earth. In some of its aspects, this law is called the law of compensation, or the law of dual effect. On its action depends the preservation of energy. And we have a quote here from Luke 6:38. The great master expressed the ethical application of this law when he said, "Give and it shall be given unto you, for with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again." In the realms of physical nature, giving and receiving, action and reaction, balance each other mechanically and automatically. What we gain in power, we lose in speed or volume, and vice versa. This makes it possible for the mechanic, the scientist, and the astronomer to predict with mathematical precision for ages in advance the result of certain activities in nature. The great law of dual effect forms the foundation of healing science. It is related to and governs every phenomenon of health, disease, and cure. The fundamental law of cure in the words, "Every acute disease is the result of a healing effort of nature," was but another expression of the great law of action and reaction. What we commonly call crisis, acute reaction, or acute disease is in reality nature's attempt to establish health. Applied to the physical activity of the body, the law of compensation may be expressed as follows. Every agent affecting the human organism produces two effects, a first temporary effect and a second lasting effect. The second lasting effect is always contrary to the first transient effect. For instance, the first and temporary effect of cold water applied to the skin consists in sending the blood to the interior, but in order to compensate for the local depletion, nature responds by sending greater quantities back to the surface, which results in increased warmth and better surface circulation. The first effect of hot bath is to draw the blood to the surface, but the second effect sends the blood back to the interior, leaving the surface bloodless and chilled. Stimulants, as we shall presently see, produce their deceptive effects by consuming the reserve stores of vital energy in the organism. This is inevitably followed by weakness and exhaustion in exact proportion to the previous excitation. The first effect of relaxation and sleep is weakness, numbness, and death-like stupor. The second effect, however, is an increase of vitality. The law of dual effect governs all drug action. The first, temporary, violent effects of poisonous drugs, when taken in physiological doses, is used due to nature's efforts to overcome and eliminate these substances. The second, lasting effect is due to the retention of the drug poisons in the system and their destructive action on the organism. In theory and in practice, allopathy considers the first effect only and ignores the lasting after effects of drugs and surgical operations. It administers remedies whose first effect is contrary to the disease condition. Therefore, in accordance with the law of action and reaction, the second, lasting effect of such remedies must be similar to the disease condition. Common everyday experience should teach us that this is true, for laxatives and cathartics always tend to produce chronic constipation. The second effect of stimulants and tonics of any kind is increased weakness. Their continued use often results in complete exhaustion and paralysis of mental and physical powers. Headache powders, painkillers, opiates, sedatives, and hypnotics may paralyze brain and nerves into temporary insensibility, but, if due to constitutional causes, the pain, nervousness, and insomnia will always return with redoubled force. And this is where that suppression comes in. If you keep, taking whatever medicine, it keeps suppressing these symptoms, which then they come back doubled. It just comes back worse, and it keeps coming back. No matter how many times you take these medicines to suppress the stuff, it just comes back. If taken habitually, these agents invariably tend to create heart disease and paralysis, and ultimately developed the dope fiend. Cold and catarrh cures such as quinine, coal tar products, etc., suppresses nature's efforts to eliminate waste and morbid matter through the mucous linings of the respiratory tract, causing retention of diseased matter, thus breeding pneumonia, chronic catarrh, asthma, and consumption. Mercury, iodine, salvarsan, and all other alternatives, by suppression of external elimination, and even more so by their own destructive effects, create internal chronic diseases of the most dreadful types, such as locomotor ataxia, paresis, paralysis, agitans, etc. So the recital might be continued all throughout the orthodox materia medica. Each drug breeds new disease symptoms, which are in their turn cured by other poisons, until the insane asylum or the merciful death ring down the curtain on the tragedy of ruined life. And this is another thing, because someone will go to the doctor of some sort of complaint. That doctor prescribes them some sort of medication to help relieve those symptoms, but then that medication creates some sort of side effect for that person. That person may not realize the side effects. They go to the doctor with a new complaint, and their doctor may either prescribe a new medication or send them to some specialist. They'll go to that specialist or take that new prescription, have another symptom, go back to the doctor, get another prescription for that symptom, and it's just a domino effect. People end up with a stack load of medications that just causes more problems. The view accepted by most homeopaths is what is known as Herring's Law. Cure proceeds from above downward, from within outward, from the most important organs to the least important organs, and in reverse order of appearance of symptoms. The first portion of the law is believed to mean that if someone had pain in the shoulders, but now it is in the hips, that healing is occurring. The second portion of the law is believed to mean that improvement is occurring when physiological symptoms improve even if physical symptoms worsen. So that's where you'll hear naturopaths say you'll feel worse before you feel better. The third portion of the law is fairly literal, that healing proceeds from the most important organs to the least important organs. The final portion has also been stated that as healing progresses, symptoms appear and disappear in the reverse of their original chronological order of appearance. Homeopaths have observed that constantly their patients re-experience symptoms from past conditions. The time during which the patient has suffered from these symptoms range from 6 months to 10 or 20 years before present treatment. A good example of this, I had found out, so the very last vaccine I have ever received was the 2008-2009 flu vaccine. And it was 2 or 3 years ago that I found out that that last vaccine was still affecting me negatively. I got a homeopathic antidote for that vaccine. I was taking it for a few days. I think it might have been like the 3rd or 4th day. I just felt extremely nauseous, like I was like gonna vomit. And that was an indication that that antidote was actually helping. Like I was feeling worse before I was getting better. The primary times situations, commonly referred to as healing crisis, arise when individuals have been advised to go off of caffeine or if they are fighting some type of parasitic or mycotic infection. These people will generally tend to have periods of discomfort, sometimes even after they have begun to improve. Some naturopaths tend to work more on the physical level with clients, while others tend to focus more on emotional levels. Through undoubtedly some of the causes of enervation actually led to ill health, as a naturopath that is not the focus. Morality issues are critically important, but when people pay to see a naturopath, that is not why they think they are setting the appointment. However, practical suggestions along those lines, when they seem to be required for the healing process, are appropriate. The basic view on healing process is that if someone is ingesting something that is toxic to them, they need to eliminate it from their diet. This allows the body to detoxify and heal itself. Since many seem to have nutritional deficiencies, one should recommend what the body needs for rebuilding. Thus, healing is an elimination of toxins, avoidance of future toxins, and nourishing the body so that it can heal itself. So that is the laws of cure. You know, just taking better care of yourself, eating healthier foods. When you do get sick, if it's an acute disease, you know, it's your body trying to take on this stuff by itself. If you're eating healthy, you're eating clean, you're not going to have much of an issue. But if you're constantly eating junk foods, you know, non-organic foods, and your body's just going to have a harder time dealing with that stuff, and it's going to occur a lot more than you would like. I know for me personally, when I wasn't eating all that great, you know, didn't understand the difference between organic and non-organic foods, I was constantly getting sick. It wasn't fun. It was horrible. It was miserable. And now it's gotten to the point that I've been doing so good, you know, eating healthy wise and all that, taking care of myself. And I only get sick like maybe once or twice a year. And if anything, it's just a cold. You know, it lasts a week or two. I really don't suffer as much as I used to. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, go ahead and give me a follow. And yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, stay healthy, everyone.